Senator Lindsey Graham and Senator Jack Reed, both members of the Armed Services Committee, join us now. And we begin with Senator Graham. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday. Good to have you with us here today.
Thank you.
In a New York Times editorial, Erdogan went on to say that the United States until the United States starts respecting Turkey's sovereignty and proves that it understands the dangers that our nation faces, our partnership could be in jeopardy, which leads to the question, I mean, is this still a working relationship at all with Turkey?
Well, we have an air base in Turkey. They're a NATO ally. It needs to be a working relationship. We need Turkey to help us in Syria. We need Turkey to help us in Iraq. They're our NATO ally. But they have not just Pastor Brunson in jail, but 5 or 6 other Americans who work for the, Turkish citizens who work for the American embassy. We're not going to have a normal relationship with Turkey until they let Pastor Brunson out. The charges against him are complete shams. It's a bogus event regarding Pastor Brunson and others who work for the American embassy. They had nothing to do with trying to topple the government.
You know, I think in terms of the Pastor Brunson question and, you know, this back and forth between Turkey and the United States over an operation to overthrow the government in Turkey, which is what Erdogan is so angry about. It's interesting to see, you know, that relationship, that these are pinned on the return of these individuals, which is a way that we haven't really seen presidents work in the past. Do you think this is going to be successful? Is Brunson going to come back, and is there a possibility to repair this relationship? We also know that Turkey wants to buy defense weaponry from Russia. That's also something we don't want them to do.
Yeah, this relationship needs to be prepared. It's in Turkey's interest to have a good relationship with the United States, and it's our interest to have a good relationship with Turkey. I'd like to one day do a free trade agreement with Turkey. I'd like to get them out of Russia's orbit, pull them away from Iran, and back into our sphere of influence where they should be. But there'll never be a normal relationship until Pastor Brunson is out of jail. He pastored a church of 50 people in Izmir, Turkey. He had nothing to do with the uprising in 2016. The employees of the American embassy are not Golanists trying to overthrow the Turkish government. In 2016, the military turned on the Turkish president. I can understand his concerns, but the S-400 being bought from from Russia, Russia's premier missile defense system, you can't have the F-35 and the S-400 both. So we need to reset this relationship, and the best way to do it is let Pastor Brunson come home and start over.
All right. When the president left for Helsinki, he talked about all of the meetings that were ahead of him. And at that point, he said Putin might be the easiest of all of them, that he wanted to find some common ground with the leader of Russia. Now we've got a situation where there are sanctions due to the poisoning that happened in the UK, and Medvedev is saying that he thinks that they're in economic warfare at this point. So is it fair to say that the president has put the goal of finding common ground with Russia to the back burner at this point?
Yeah, I think Russian behavior has dominated the relationship here. I don't mind trying to have a better relationship with Russia. They just need to act better to achieve that goal. They did. They're directly involved in killing the British citizen. The poison that was used in Britain to kill this former Soviet member who became a spy came from Russia. They are meddling in the 2018 election. I'm 100% certain that they are continuing to meddle in our election. They intend to disrupt the 2018 election. So I've introduced hard-hitting sanctions. I applaud the administration for hitting Russia based on what they did in Britain. So you'll never have a better relationship with Putin as long as he behaves the way he does, and I appreciate the president pushing back.
All right. I want to ask you, before I let you go, a non-foreign policy question with regard to Bruce Ohr, who is a Department of Justice official who worked under Sally Yates and just a few offices down from the head of the Justice Department. He's becoming a much more central figure in what looks to be the initiation of this Russia investigation. What do you know about that?
Well, he was the number 4 guy at the Department of Justice. His wife worked for Fusion GPS, the firm hired by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign to find dirt on Trump. They hired Christopher Steele, a former British agent who went to Russia to gather a dossier that I think is a bunch of political garbage. Here's what I would tell the American people. Both campaigns were investigated by the FBI and Department of Justice in 2016. When it came to the Clinton campaign, she got a pass. The criminal investigation of the Clinton campaign was a joke. When it came to the Trump campaign, it was corrupt, it was biased, and I think unethical. Mr. Orr should not have had any role in investigating the Trump campaign because his wife worked at Fusion GPS. The FBI agent in charge of the Clinton campaign hated Trump, liked Clinton, and also started the counterintelligence investigation against Trump. When it came to Dianne Feinstein, they went to her and said, hey, there's a Chinese person working on your staff that we think may be tied to the Chinese government. When it came time to, they never did the same for Trump. So these investigations against Trump were corrupt to the core. They gave Clinton a pass. Bruce Orr was at least unethical. We need a special counsel to look at all things Department of Justice and FBI when it came to the Trump investigation, particularly the counterintelligence investigation.
We're going to talk more about that in a moment. I've got one more minute with you, so I'm going to circle back to North Korea for a moment because the White House has really never explained the discrepancy between the president's tweet, which says that there is no longer a nuclear threat from North Korea, and John Bolton's assessment that the Singapore agreement really has not yielded any progress at all. You said at one point that the president could potentially receive the Nobel Prize for what he was doing in North Korea. So what do you say now?
Well, I think we need to be patient. North Korea is going to respond appropriately, or they go back to the same old way of doing business. I can tell you this: President Trump has no place to kick the can when it comes to North Korea. If he had to, as a last resort, he would use military force to stop their missile program, their nuclear program. And to the Iranians, watch what's going on with Iran. Do you want to be next? I appreciate the president withdrawing from the nuclear agreement with Iran and trying to break the Ayatollah's back economically. This is a religious theocracy that's dismembering the Mideast. To North Korea, if you don't think Trump will turn on you if you try to play him, watch what's going on in North Korea.
Senator Lindsey Graham, always good to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much. So joining me now from Rhode Island,